I am truly sorry to everyone who was hurt. We have taken significant steps to remove or sanction those who violated our values and code of conduct, and we are working hard to improve our systems and processes.
Nah, not good enough!
I am a role model. I am a role model to be looked up to and revered, and as such, people often look to me for guidance of how to live their life in an ethical and moral way. And everybody knows I am the bastion of morality and ethics. You should definitely listen to this thing. Today we're going to try and help you navigate in some small way the video game industry and all its nastiness. Try and be a little productive, a little more positive facing today. After all, how can we not be positive when I have the Rise Championship? And Snake Alien. Look, its mouth goes. Look. So that's fun. So there's my first bit of life advice. Get a title belt, right? Get a Snake Alien, and if you can't be bothered to put your makeup on, get a Vault Boy mask.
It's a question I am asked a lot. Oh, Jim, they inquire with the requisite dose of reverence and unflinching trust. I don't like the idea of supporting a corrupt and toxic industry, but I do still want to play the video games that come from it. So, how in the what fuck? Ah yes, often is the time I'm asked how in the what fuck with regards to this query, and for a regular viewer of this show, or indeed a regular follower of any grimmer game industry discussion, it's not an unreasonable question to have. One unfortunate side effect of seeing how the sausage is made is that it can breed a reticence to eat sausages, and as far as the game industry goes, we're not just seeing the sausage get made, we're seeing it subsequently eaten by wild hogs, digested, shat out, reconstituted, and then given to us for our fucking supper. We've gone over the grisly details in past episodes. The abuse, the crunch, the greed, the corruption, the endless fucking lies. And did I mention abuse? Yes, I did, because it's the worst and everywhere. So yeah, in unpleasant times, and especially in a year of quarantines and cooped upwardness, people are both sensitive to the increasingly exposed underbelly of the so-called AAA video game industry, and desperate for such distracting media as video games to take their minds off all the horribleness. And so, they ask how they can still be mindful of the poison the game industry perpetuates while continuing to buy and play games from the very worst companies the market has to offer. There's undeniable self-interest in that question, but look, I get it. Between what goes on in the world and what goes on in our heads, there aren't enough distractions sometimes, and video games have always provided reliable escapism for myself and many others. With so many events cancelled, personal lives disrupted, and the news cycle being naught but despair, I don't begrudge anybody who's spent a year looking forward to Watch Dogs 3 suddenly finding themselves in a dilemma. Provided, of course, they're not the kind of fuckface who processes that dilemma by plugging their fingers in their ears, lashing out at anybody bringing it up, and minimising the harm done to the victims of the industry's abuses. If you want to buy a AAA game, go right ahead, fill your boots. But don't get angry at people who remember what it took to make that game. And of course, what it took to make that game, going through crunch, going through overtime, pushing people's bodies and brains to the limit. That's one reason people give for wanting to play these games. Don't let all that hard work go to waste. Do it for the artists who made the game, not the publisher selling the game. And that's a noble enough reason, certainly a noble justification for you wanting to buy and play a game that you want to buy and play in the first place. But that itself does throw up quandaries. I mean, if you buy the game to support the art, you're not really financially supporting the art because the money flows up to the executives who already have millions and billions.
But I am determined to do everything in my power to ensure everyone at Ubisoft feels welcomed, respected, and safe.
They're still not good enough.
In any case, like it or not, and you know I'm in the not category, we're all ground under the same boot heel of triple capitalism, and almost any media we purchase, any escapism we indulge in, will funnel money up to wealthy, predatory, abusive monsters. The viciously ironic situation is that triple capitalism enforces the inequality and crunch and grind and exploitation that keeps us all miserable, so we buy things from the very enforcers of that misery to distract us from the misery. Capitalism is the Simpsons joke about alcohol, but real. Businesses have created for themselves a system where they are indeed the cause of, and solution to, all life's problems. Aside from eating the rich, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. This is something I full well know every time someone attempts a gotcha on me by saying,
"You criticise capitalism, but you need money for to live. Looks like you is the capitalism after all."
These smug little fish-eyed fetuses truly do believe they've got me nailed to the wall because I was the capitalism all along. Because I have a Patreon where a bunch of you very kindly throw financial support behind me. I am literally as bad as billionaire layoff lord Bobby Kotick for that crime, and they're so desperate to look for hypocrisy where there is none that they've compared people giving money on Patreon to spending money on microtransactions in the past. In fact, one little chancer was so pleased when they came up with the idea that my Patreon is no better than loot boxes because people supporting the show don't know what episode I will do next. Yes, it's exactly the same as gambling. This is not a unique accusation for me though. Don't think I'm saying I'm being singled out. Anyone who criticises the system we're all stuck working in will be accused of hypocrisy for being stuck in the system we're all stuck working in. It's the participating in society meme, basically, which is itself an extension of that time-worn and classically pathetic argument, if you don't like it, just leave. As if life's that simple. Life, of course, ain't simple, which is why I have to use capitalism to support my show that bashes capitalism, though I like to think the fully optional way our crowdfunding is set up here at least demonstrates that we're trying to do capitalism on our terms as best we can. As best as anyone can, I suppose. Which brings us full circle to the circular issue of buying things made by shitheads to escape the shitty things shitheads have done. Indeed, using video games to escape away from the video game industry isn't an ethical quandary for everyone. Many people can happily separate art from artist, and if they so choose, well, more power to them. I've got no time to get into that except to say J.K. Rowling is one hell of a fucking turf. For those of you who ask me that question though, the ones who ask how they can continue buying games, or if they should, or what constitutes support for toxic behaviour, I'm going to try and help you out a little bit. As best I can anyway. I don't have all the answers. I don't have your answers maybe, but I'll do my dang best. So right, the used game market still exists despite the game industry fighting it for almost 20 years. It's on its last legs, and subtle moves to digital-only games hardware will only pave the way for a physical-free future where tradable copies of games are, if not entirely extinct, at least notably more limited. But until the last embers of the second-hand sellers die out, if you absolutely must play the next Assassin's Creed, but you don't want to support abuse-friendly Ubisoft or its mealy-mouthed "I'm so sorry, I didn't know anything" CEO, then consider buying used. Buying used Ubisoft. It doesn't work as a catchy thing. Thanks to the speed of mindless media consumption, video games are available in a used format quicker than ever before. Usually a retailer like GameStop will have trade-ins ready to sell within a couple days of a game's launch at least. And if you don't want to support GameStop because fuck them, there's Amazon, eBay, all manner of online sellers, and if you don't want to support them because fuck them, well, like I said, this all gets very circular and I can't draw your lines for you. At some point you gotta draw them for yourself. The point is, you don't have to buy a video game at launch. That's just sound advice in general. You never know when a game will patch a predatory microtransaction system in, or release a next-gen ready ultimate edition of a game published less than a year beforehand. With post-launch surreptitiousness, quick post-launch discounts, and inevitable Game of the Year editions, the game industry has been steadily telling us that if we buy games at launch, we are mugs. So I don't think anyone in the industry should be offended if I'm telling my audience not to buy games at launch. Still, if you must have the game quickly, simply consider staying off social media for a day or two, or forever, get away from the FOMO that companies propagate there to get you buying immediately, and hold off for like a week at most. You'll get the game you want, the copy you have was already sold, so the damage has been done, and it was all legally purchased no matter how many game industry pundits will try to liken it to piracy, which is a thing they legit tried to do all the time in the 2000s. Buy used. It's what I'm doing for any Ubisoft games I deign to cover on this channel. Is it a perfect solution? No. The perfect solution would be dragging Yves Jumeau through the street and pelting him with the pig eyelids and donkey scrotes they put in hot dogs. We sadly do not live in a realm where a solution can be perfected. Nonetheless, we do what we can. That's the overall theme for today's episode. Do what you can. Now, I mentioned piracy a moment ago, and I don't condone it. I certainly don't condone it for Ubisoft's games, because their DRM completely works, they said so. At least, when it does, or when it doesn't, or when it does or doesn't. Well, who knows what story Ubisoft's going with today, but piracy is not something I do. At least, not usually. There may have been the odd exception. You see, I am pirating Disney's Mulan on general principle. I'm not even gonna watch it. I have no plans to watch it. But 30 fucking bucks on my fucking Disney Plus I'm fucking paying for, even though I didn't even think the fucking Mandalorian was all that fucking good. Ooh, get fucked, Walt, my dear boy, and may your frozen head be hurled over a fence. It's at this time I'd like to remind you all that this section of the show is for novelty purposes, like a dildo sold in Mississippi. It is not to be taken seriously or internally, and I'd like to add furthermore that I am either joking or doing a social experiment, or it's just a prank, bro, whichever is more plausible. Emphatically, for the record, unanimously, and contagiously, I state that I have not, am not, and do not have plans to acquire a copy of Disney's Mulan through illegal or indeed illegal means. But if I were going to visit one of any number of easily accessible sites that would guarantee a free copy of Disney's Mulan within a matter of minutes, I would make the case that it's arguably more ethical than dropping a $30 surcharge on your subscribers for one fucking movie during the second recession of a generation. And to further extrapolate from that, I'd argue piracy is itself immeasurably more ethical than many other business practices the game industry legally engages in, to the point of bubble-bursting excess. Do two wrongs make a right? No. Do they get you a copy of Mulan? Definitely not, right kids? I think it'd be remiss not to point out that perhaps your money could not be withheld from game purveyors so much as redistributed. That is to say, it's not just mega corporations like EA, Activision, Ubisoft and Take-Two that's looking for your cash. It's something of a cliche to bring up indie and smaller scale games as answers to AAA titles, I know, but just because something's been done to death, that doesn't mean it isn't true. Just look at this fucking show. There's loads of great shit out, quality entertainment being made by not gigantic corporations. Personally, I've been playing Paradise Killer recently, an investigation game that takes the explorative visual novel approach of Hotel Dusk and marries it to a trippy grasshopper manufacture style aesthetic. Imagine Phoenix Wright but looking a bit like Killer 7 and you get the idea. It's well written, great character design, unapologetically camp, and while its exploration can wear thin, and I hate that thing where dialogue text in games is accompanied by a small handful of rotating stock phrases, it sure is shit a complete game experience that hasn't been carved up for monetization, isn't preying on its players, and wasn't published by goddamn fucking Activision. That's not to say indie game devs can't be arseholes. In fact, I've dealt with a few arsehole indie devs in the past. But when you find the non-arsehole ones, you can be pretty sure that your money is going to the non-arsehole developers. You saw me talking about Disco Elysium before, right? You want a game that actually has shit to say with its political themes, instead of playing in the shallow waters of imperialist imagery and then feigning ignorance? You can go fucking play Disco Elysium. Cloudpunk. Have you heard of Cloudpunk? Cloudpunk is pretty and chill and really quite neat. What are some of the games I plugged last year that most of my audience skipped the videos about? Children of Morta, fucking great. Blasphemous, get the fuck in there. Void Bastards, very good. Shakedown Hawaii, pretty much everything the Jimquisition whines about as a fun video game. Hypnospace Outlaw, it's a game where you're a web cop in a world where the web is still 1999 stuff and it's weird and engrossing. And if none of that's good enough for you, fuck it, let's all just play Golden Axe, Jesus fucking Christ. Now today's video does leave one last point. And it's something we did brush up a little throughout the video, but let's just say it here, out now, plain as day. You can simply not buy a video game. You can just not buy one.
I mean, that's a pretty simple answer. If a company is really acting in an egregious manner that goes up against your morals, your ethics, your outlook on life, you can just... Like, they don't listen to game publishers. They'll make you think you can't live without a video game. You can. In fact, I can. I could go this whole year without buying an Ubisoft game, even secondhand, and not doing it on my channel, and it's my job. In fact, let's just do that. Yeah. Thank God for me. God, that's really going to free up my October and November. Excellent.